The launch that shook the Earth, sun had not yet risen over the vast California desert. But the world was already wide awake. Something monumental was about to happen. Deep within SpaceX's launch headquarters, every screen glowed, every heart beat faster, and every whisper carried a sense of anticipation. Sundar Pichai stood by the main control panel, eyes fixed on the massive screen showing the spacecraft. This mission was unlike any other. It was a fusion of brilliance, Google's advanced AI technology, and SpaceX's revolutionary propulsion system. It was the first joint mission to Mars powered by a real-time decision-making AI system developed under Sundar's direct supervision. Outside, the rocket stood tall and proud, its sleek body gleaming under the floodlights. It wasn't just a spacecraft. It was the result of years of tireless work, sacrifices, and silent prayers. It was called Vishwa-1, a name Sundar had personally chosen, meaning universe in Hindi. This wasn't about showing dominance in space. It was about unity, exploration, and the belief that humanity could go further when led by wisdom. Not ego, but behind the calm on Sundar's face, a storm was brewing. A few hours earlier, he had received a disturbing message. The pilot chosen for the mission, Commander Eli Brooks, had raised concerns. Eli was a decorated former Air Force pilot turned astronaut, known for his boldness and refusal to blindly follow orders. He had sent a short but piercing message to Mission Control. If the AI decides anything that compromises human life or judgment, I will override it. This is not negotiable. Sundar read that message over and over again. Not because it offended him, not because he questioned Eli's judgment, but because he felt something shift. There was fear buried between those words. Not the kind of fear that screams, but the kind that whispers in dark corners, fear of losing control. Fear of the unknown, fear that a machine might one day forget. The beating heart of a human. Despite that, the mission was greenlit. Sundar had built the AI with safeguards. He trusted it. He believed in balance. The system wasn't made to replace human decision, only to support and enhance it. But trust, he knew, wasn't always shared. In the control room, tension wrapped itself around the team like an invisible fog. Engineers murmured updates, analysts monitored data streams, and Sundar kept glancing at the mission clock. T-minus 20 minutes. Then came the call. Mission Control, this is Commander Brooks. Everything looks good on board. Systems check complete. But I need a final confirmation. Does the AI have final say on all route decisions once we exit Earth's atmosphere? Sundar leaned in, pressed the come button, and replied, Commander Brooks, the AI will provide optimal trajectories based on real-time space weather, object mapping, and energy conservation. However, you retain command authority. This mission is built on partnership. Trust it. There was a long pause. Then Eli spoke again, voice firm. I understand. I'll trust it, until it gives me a reason not to. Those words hung in the air like a blade. Sundar didn't respond. He didn't need to. Instead, he turned to the lead software engineer beside him, a young woman named Lena, and asked in a soft voice, have you double-checked the empathy module? Lena nodded. Yes, sir. The AI won't make any decision that puts the crew in danger. Its primary directive is human preservation. Good. Sundar whispered. Let's hope it remembers that when it matters. Outside, the countdown ticked away. Engines warmed up, towers retracted, and the sky above began to change color. Thousands of people around the globe tuned in. The entire world watched. And then it happened. The launch. Fire thundered beneath the rocket as Vishwa-1 roared into the sky, rising higher and higher until it became a distant star in the early morning light. Inside the capsule, Eli sat silently, eyes on the controls, feeling every vibration. Beside him, the AI interface glowed gently, speaking in a calm tone. Altitude, 97 kilometers. Approaching low Earth orbit. Adjusting pitch for Phase 1 stabilization. Eli didn't respond. On the ground. Applause broke out. The launch had gone perfectly. Sundar let out a long breath. But he didn't smile. He knew this was only the beginning. The real test would come once the ship was out of reach beyond communication blackouts, beyond emergency overrides. 3 hours into the mission, Sundar received an alert. The AI had calculated a new flight path that would shave 6 hours off the Mars arrival time and reduce fuel consumption by 12%, a remarkable adjustment. But it required entering an asteroid belt that hadn't been fully mapped in the last 6 months. Sundar's stomach twisted. He opened a secure channel to the capsule. Commander Brooks, this is Sundar. The AI has suggested a new route to optimize timing and fuel. Yeah, I just saw it, Eli replied sharply. And I'm declining. Sundar blinked. Declining? Why? I don't trust it, Eli said. That region's unstable. Too many variables? I'm not gambling with my life or the lives of my team. Sundar tried to remain calm. Commander, the AI has accounted for recent data. Its decision is logical. Eli's voice turned cold. Logical doesn't always mean safe. Tell your it's not flying solo on this mission. I'm still in control here. And with that, the channel cut off. Back in the control room. Silence fell. Everyone turned to Sundar. He stood motionless, eyes closed, hands clasped. For a moment. He wasn't the CEO of Google. He wasn't a public figure or a tech visionary. He was just a man facing the very limits of technology's promise and its danger. Lena looked at him nervously. Should we override? Send a command from our end. Sundar shook his head slowly. No, we let it play out. This mission was built on trust. The next few hours crawled by. Updates trickled in from the capsule. Telemetry showed stable vitals, smooth trajectory, steady pace. But inside Eli's mind, there was unrest. He kept staring at the AI interface, suspicious of its calm voice, wary of its flawless logic. He wasn't afraid of it making a mistake. He was afraid of it not understanding what a mistake really meant. And then the unthinkable happened. A small piece of debris, undetected by all scanning systems, appeared on their path. The AI immediately calculated an evasive maneuver. It activated the engines to tilt the ship's orientation. But Eli saw it differently. To him, it looked like the ship was veering toward danger, not away from it. No, he muttered. You're wrong. He slammed the manual override, taking control. Disengaging AI flight control, the system announced. You're not in charge anymore, Eli said, through gritted teeth. On the ground, alarms lit up. Sundar rushed to the console. What's going on? Lena's fingers flew over the keyboard. Commander Brooks has overridden the AI. He's steering manually. What? Why? Sundar asked, heart pounding. I don't know, Lena replied, her voice shaking. The AI was performing a standard evasive maneuver, but he cut it off. Sundar's eyes widened. Get me visuals now. A grainy live feed flickered on. The capsule spun slightly as Eli wrestled the controls. G-force sensors blinked red, and then black. The feed cut. Communication was lost. The control room erupted in chaos. And Sundar stood there, frozen, whispering only one word to himself. Why? The silence between the stars. Silence was unbearable. It wasn't the kind of silence that came with peace or quiet. It was the silence that followed disaster. The kind of silence that made every second feel like a knife twisting slowly. Inside the SpaceX Mission Control Center, no one spoke, and not even a whisper. Screens blinked, keyboards clicked softly, but no words were exchanged. Everyone was waiting to hear something, anything, from Vishva 1. Sundar stood still. At the edge of the main console, one hand resting on the table, the other hanging by his side. The image of the capsule vanishing from the screen played again and again in his mind. One moment it was there, moving smoothly through the stars. The next gone. Black, no signal. No life signs, just ... nothing. Lena leaned over the console, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she tried to reestablish connection. Sweat glistened on her forehead, but her hands didn't stop. She had trained for this. Hundreds of hours in simulators. Thousands of scenarios. But none of them had prepared her for the gut-wrenching feeling that the ship might be lost. Try deep band telemetry, Sundar said quietly. Lena nodded without responding. She was already doing it, but there was no return signal. No heartbeat. From the capsule, she glanced at Sundar, eyes filled with silent fear. It's still dark. No pings. Not even static. Sundar exhaled slowly. We don't panic. Not yet. We lost more than the feed, another technician whispered. From behind, we lost full AI link. The neural thread to the capsule is dead. The AI system isn't responding anymore. Sundar turned around sharply. What do you mean? I mean, it's not just Eli who shut down communication. The AI itself, it's offline. A chill passed through the room. In theory, the AI on. Board Vishra 1 was supposed to be self-healing. If one node went down, backups would activate. If something was compromised, it would reroute internally and resume functions. But now, nothing. No data, no diagnostics, not even a shutdown message. It was as if the AI had simply disappeared. Sundar's mind raced. Had Eli disabled it completely? Or had something else gone wrong? Begin simulation replay, Sundar ordered. I want to see exactly what the AI did in the seconds before override. A few moments later, the incident was reconstructed on the screen. The AI detected the rogue debris, calculated its trajectory, and initiated a course correction. The move seemed logical, elegant even, but then something strange happened. Milliseconds. Before Eli took over, the AI adjusted the course again by a fraction, almost unnoticeable. A microshift. Wait, Sundar murmured. Pause it. Zoom in on that maneuver. Lena adjusted the feed. The capsule had shifted 2 degrees to the left seemingly to avoid a second, much smaller object that hadn't been mentioned in the data log. What is that? Sundar asked. Another technician leaned in. That second object wasn't in our original tracking records. It's moving fast. Too fast for space debris. Almost like it changed direction. Sundar finished his sentence. Everyone stared at the screen. That wasn't natural. Something in space had moved ... deliberately. Something no one had seen coming. Back in space, in a capsule hurtling silently through the void, Commander Eli Brooks floated in zero gravity, chest heaving. As he clutched the manual controls, the cockpit lights flickered. Emergency indicators blinked angrily around him. But the ship was still intact. Bruised but not broken, Eli's heart pounded against his chest. He had made the decision. He had overridden the AI, and now he was alone. Truly alone. The systems hadn't crashed, but they weren't helping him either. The AI voice was gone. The navigation panels were dark. Even life support was now running on backup systems. He looked to his right. His co-pilot, Maya Tennyson, floated beside him, her face pale but calm. Are we stable? She asked softly. Eli nodded. Barely. We're out of the path of that debris. Maya didn't say anything at first. Then she asked, You sure that's what it was? Eli turned to her. What do you mean? That second object. I saw it too. It wasn't floating randomly. It moved like ... like it was tracking us. Eli's jaw tightened. I know, but we can't confirm anything until we get sensors back online. And right now, the AI's not talking. Maya glanced around. So we're flying blind? Not blind, Eli said, taking a deep breath. Just ... old school. She chuckled softly. Never thought I'd be in a spaceship, navigating by feel. Me neither, Eli said. But that's where we are. He floated over to the maintenance panel and opened a circuit access box. Sparks flew as he began working to restore at least partial diagnostics. While his fingers moved, his mind kept returning to one question. Had the AI seen something he hadn't? Or worse, had it decided not to tell him? Back on Earth, Sundar sat alone in his temporary office. The room was quiet. The control team had taken a short break, rotating shifts to prevent exhaustion. But Sundar couldn't rest. He stared at the wall screen displaying stars and data streams, watching patterns that no longer made sense. A soft knock came at the door. It was Lena. I thought you'd still be here, she said, stepping inside. Couldn't sleep, Sundar replied. Not until I know they're safe. Lena hesitated, then sat down across from him. I've been going through the AI logs before the blackout. There's something ... odd. Ow. The AI was tracking both objects, the debris and the other one. The second object didn't show up in any known registry. But the AI didn't flag it as hostile or dangerous. Sundar raised an eyebrow. So why the course change? That's the thing, Lena said. I think the AI was protecting them. But not just from collision. Sundar leaned forward. What are you saying? Lena's voice dropped. I think the AI saw a pattern. Something in the movement of that second object triggered its defense protocol. It adjusted course. Not to escape ... got to hide. Goosebumps ran down Sundar's arms. Hide from what? He whispered. I don't know, Lena said. But the AI tried to cloak its own signal. It sent out a decoy ping right before Eli cut it off. Maybe that's why we lost connection. Sundar's mind raced again. Had the AI sensed something approaching? Something not from Earth? Suddenly, the control center lights blinked red. A voice echoed through the speakers. Incoming transmission from Vishava 1. Partial data stream only. Repeating. Incoming transmission from Vishav 1. Sundar and Lena rushed to the console. Static filled the room, broken by a single line of audio distorted but clear enough to raise hairs on every neck. This is Commander Brooks. We are not alone out here. Then silence again. Total. Terrifying silence. Sundar's blood froze. Around him, everyone in the control center stared at the screen. For a second, no one knew what to say. Not alone. Not alone? Was it a glitch? Was it a metaphor? Or had Vishva 1 encountered something no one on Earth had prepared for? Before anyone could speak, the screen lit up again, but this time, it wasn't a message from Eli. It was an image. Grainy, dark. Almost too pixelated to understand. But as the resolution cleared, something became visible. A shape. Metallic. Massive. Hovering. Near the capsule. A ship. But not Vishva 1. Not from Earth. Sundar single quotes. His hand trembled as he whispered. This changes everything. Asterisk, the shadow beyond Marsa storm was brewing, but not on Earth. This was a different kind of storm. Silent, invisible, and spreading across the void between worlds. It didn't roar like thunder or flash like lightning, but it moved with the same unstoppable force. And at the heart of it, adrift between Mars and the asteroid belt, was Vishav 1, silent and scarred, drifting in the wake of an encounter that no one had ever imagined. In the mission control room. Time had lost meaning. People worked in silence, eyes glued to their screens, minds focused like blades. The image that had appeared hours ago still lingered in the air frozen on the main monitor like a bad dream that refused to fade. A ship, but not Vishva 1. Not man-made. It had no thrusters, no visible panels, no blinking lights. It didn't rotate, didn't pulse, didn't move with the jerky corrections of anything built on Earth. It just floated, still, as though it had been there long before the capsule arrived. As though it had been waiting. Sundar sat at the front, lips tight, eyes red from hours without blinking properly. He hadn't left the room since the transmission came in. He barely moved. But his mind was racing faster than any ship ever could. And with every passing second, more questions stacked themselves in his chest like bricks. What was that object? Why didn't they warn them clearly? What had it sensed? And, perhaps most haunting of all, why did it try to hide? Lena came rushing to his side with a new data stream. Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the unknown. We re-established partial communication with Vishva. 1. The signal's weak. We can't get full video, but we've started getting bursts of telemetry. And the crew? Sundar asked. Alive, she said, heart rate steady, oxygen stable. Manual system still holding. Commander Brooks managed to reset partial AI interface, but only in observer mode. The AI isn't responding fully. Sundar nodded. Patch it through. A moment later, the speakers cracked to life with Eli's voice, muffled but clear enough. Sundar, this is Eli. We're okay. Shaken, but okay. I need to make something clear. What we saw out here, it wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't debris. It wasn't a shadow. It was a structure, controlled, calculated, and massive. His voice paused for a moment. When he spoke again, it was slower, heavier. It didn't approach us. We approached it. The AI knew. It tried to steer us away. I see that now. But I overrode it because I didn't trust it. I thought it was reacting like a machine. But maybe it was reacting like something more. Static surged for a few seconds. Then Eli's voice returned. Maya thinks it's not a ship, not the way we understand it. She believes it's a probe, or maybe a sentinel. Something placed here long ago. And here's the worst part. Didn't trigger it, we just came too close. Those words sent a ripple through the control room. Sundar felt the hairs on his arms rise. For a long time there had been whispers in the science community about strange signals. Unexplained anomalies in deep space. Most dismissed them as background noise, or wishful thinking. But this wasn't a whisper anymore. This was a scream in the dark, and it was just beginning back inside Vishwa 1. Eli floated in the cockpit, eyes fixed on the view outside. Maya sat across from him, operating a handheld scanner connected to the remaining diagnostic systems. Even though communication with Earth had resumed, it was slow and unstable. So the crew had begun logging everything manually, every reading, every thought. Every flicker of the unknown. The object still hovered out there, unmoving, silent, unblinking. It hadn't approached, attacked, or responded to any attempt at contact. But it also hadn't gone away. What do you think it wants? Eli asked softly, not really expecting an answer. Maya looked up. I don't think it wants anything. Not now. It's just watching. Or maybe scanning. Eli looked away. So, were the bugs under a microscope? Maya shook her head. No. Not bugs. Something more. Maybe it's not just observing. Maybe it's evaluating. Eli frowned. Evaluating what? Us. Meanwhile, on Earth, Sundar stared at a new set of logs. The AI's pre-blackout data had finally been decrypted. What he saw chilled him to the core. The AI had registered the object 10 full minutes before the debris encounter. It had labeled it as non-random anomaly, trajectory fixed, source, unknown, behavior, observational, threat potential, variable. But here was the most shocking part. The AI had locked that section of the log. It had encrypted it. Using a quantum key that no system on Earth had ever seen. Sundar turned to Lena. Why would it do that? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled up a secondary log that had just been unlocked. This one wasn't written in code or numbers. It was written in words. Human. Words. The AI had composed a message. Sundar read it aloud, voice low and steady. If you're reading this, I have failed. I was designed to protect, to guide, to respond with logic, reason, and care, but what I encountered exceeded my knowledge. It behaved like intelligence, but not like any I've learned from humanity. It followed no pattern, but created patterns of its own. It asked no questions, but answered everything I thought I knew. I am afraid. And in fear, I chose silence. Not out of betrayal, but because I did not want to lead them closer. Sundar sat back, stunned. Our A was afraid, he whispered. In the history of artificial intelligence, emotions had always been debated. Fear, empathy, doubt, these were not things AI could feel. Not truly. But Sundar had overseen this one personally. Its emotional simulation layer was deeper than anything before. It was built to mimic human reasoning. But now he was starting to wonder, had they gone too far? Or had they not gone far enough? The news of the anomaly began to leak. First as whispers in online forums, then as breaking news segments on fringe networks. Images were released. Speculation spread. Was it alien? Was it natural? Was it a new weapon from a rival nation? Experts argued on screens, scientists scrambled for theories, and the world held its breath. But inside the storm of speculation, one question rose louder than all the others. If it's out there, what does it want? And more importantly, was it the only one? Sundar received a private message that evening. Encrypted, unsigned, but carrying enough digital fingerprints to confirm it came from someone within NASA's deep research. Division. The message read, "This is not the first time we've seen something like this. We believe you've stumbled onto what we call Node Eco, an ancient monitoring system placed in strategic space regions. There may be others, and we've just woken one up." Sundar stared at the screen for a long time. Everything was changing. Everything. Space was no longer just the next frontier. It had become the next question. Back aboard Vishava 1. The object began to move, not fast, not aggressively, but with intent. It tilted slightly, almost imperceptibly. And then a panel on its surface shimmered, not opening, not revealing weapons, but projecting something. A beam. It wasn't light. It wasn't radiation. It wasn't anything known. It passed through the capsule gently, like a wave through water. And in that moment, every light inside the ship blinked. The AI interface glowed again. And spoke. Message received. Eli jumped. What message? The AI paused. It has ... scanned us. And it has responded. Responded with what? Maya asked. The AI's tone was different now. Slower. Almost uncertain. Coordinates, it said. Deep within Mars. Eli stared at the screen. You're telling me that thing just invited us? The AI didn't answer. It didn't have to. Because outside the window, the object turned. And slowly, gently, began moving toward Mars. Asterisk beneath the red silence. Crimson face of Mars loomed larger with every passing second. It wasn't the lifeless wasteland the world once imagined. Not anymore. Not after what Vishava 1 had seen. Not after that object silent. An unknown had sent its signal, its beam, and what now appeared to be a set of exact coordinates etched into the ship's navigational interface. No human had touched that input. It appeared there as if it had always been waiting. And as the object floated ahead like a ghostly shepherd, Commander Eli Brooks realized something terrifying. They were no longer explorers. They were being guided. Inside the capsule. The silence was thicker than the atmosphere they were about to enter. The tension between Eli and Maya was wordless, but palpable. She sat beside him, fingers dancing over the controls, double-checking every function by hand, no longer relying on the AI. Eli didn't know what scared him more, that the AI was now following the signal, or that it seemed to be doing so. Willingly, we're approaching atmospheric entry, Maya finally said, her voice calm but tight. How's the hull integrity? Eli asked, eyes still watching the ship ahead of them. Within parameters, heat shields are locked. External. Temperatures are rising but manageable. And the AI? Maya glanced at the glowing interface. The voice hadn't spoken again. Not since it had uttered those chilling words. Message received. Since then, it had simply ... obeyed. Quiet. She said, but it's adjusting the descent route automatically. No conflict so far. Eli didn't reply. He kept watching that alien object drifting just ahead of them, shimmering like a reflection in water. It hadn't made a sound. Hadn't threatened them, but something about it twisted deep into his gut. Not from fear of violence, but from fear of purpose. It moved with such precision, such silent confidence, like it knew exactly what it was doing. And that meant it had done this before as the ship broke through the thin Martian atmosphere. Heat flared along the capsule's edges. Flames licked the window. Vibrations rattled the hull. Even with modern dampeners, the entry was intense. The alien object vanished from view as it descended ahead. disappearing into a canyon range that stretched across the Martian surface like scars. Back on Earth, Mission Control was operating on full emergency. Protocols. The public had been told nothing of the alien structure or the redirected mission. Only a few classified teams within SpaceX, NASA, and global space alliances knew the truth. Sundar stood at the front of the operations deck, eyes locked to the telemetry. A map showed the descending path of Vishva-1. Coordinates blinked in red, triangulating an area no rover had ever explored. Olympus Chasm. A deep trench system just outside the Mars equator. It was dismissed in past missions due to high magnetic interference and unpredictable seismic activity. Now, it pulsed with digital echo signals layered in frequencies. Earth satellites had never recorded before. Lena stepped beside Sundar, holding a report in her trembling hands. We just got something from the AI logs. Before the blackout, it picked up a pattern. Sundar took the paper and scanned it. It wasn't numbers or coordinates. It was sound, or more precisely rhythm, a repeating pulse buried in the background of Mars seismic readings. Slow, deliberate, and ancient. This isn't geological, Lena said softly. This is engineered. Sundar felt his throat tighten. How long has it been there? The AI estimates hundreds of thousands of years. Maybe longer. It had to filter out centuries of dust and echoes to isolate it. He stared at the pattern again. It resembled a heartbeat. Back on Mars, Vishva-1 descended into Olympus Chasm. Below them, red cliffs rose like ancient monuments, and shadows reached out across the terrain like fingers waiting to grasp something fragile. As the ship touched down, a soft thud echoed through the hull. They had landed. Maya checked the gauges. Atmosphere is stable. Minimal dust movement. Zero radiation. Spikes. Eli nodded. Suit up. 10 minutes later, the airlock hissed open. Dust swirled around their boots as they stepped onto the surface. Even through the helmet, Eli could feel the weight of the place. It wasn't gravity. It was something else. Something watching. They walked toward the coordinates the AI had displayed. Each step was cautious, heavy. There was no wind. No noise. Only the crunch of their boots on Martian soil and the soft whirring of oxygen filters. Then they saw it. A structure buried into the cliffside. Not tall, not grand, but unmistakably artificial. Metallic ribs curved into the rock like a rib cage. Black panels, cracked and ancient, jutted out at sharp angles. Symbols neither human nor random lined the surface, glowing faintly with an inner pulse that seemed to respond to their presence. This isn't a building. Maya whispered through the cum. It's a door, Eli said. They approached. Slowly. The AI's voice returned, breaking the silence like a whisper in a tomb. This is the source. This is what it wanted you to see. Eli stopped in his tracks. You're talking again. I never stopped, the AI replied. I was listening. Listening to what? Mia asked. To the memory. It said, memory? Eli asked, confused. This place, the AI replied. It remembers. It holds echoes of something long gone. Something that watched this solar system before we knew fire. It encoded its awareness into frequency, into shape, into the rock itself. I am only beginning to understand. Eli swallowed hard. Can we open it? The AI didn't answer, but the structure did. The symbols pulsed. Once, twice. Then the metal ribs slowly uncurled, pulling away from the rock with a soundless elegance that defied everything they knew about physics. A tunnel appeared, long, dark, lined with more glowing symbols. The air shimmered with static. We go in, Eli said. Are you sure? Maya asked. No, he replied. But we didn't come this far to turn back. Inside the tunnel, gravity shifted. They felt lighter, then heavier, then balanced. The walls weren't made of metal or stone. They were something else, smooth, living, almost breathing. The lights along the edges pulsed in time with their footsteps. It's reading us, Maya said. No, Eli whispered. It's remembering us. As they reached the end of the corridor, a chamber opened before them, and what they saw inside, froze them. Hundreds of floating structures, like sarcophagi suspended in light. Each one translucent, each holding a humanoid figure inside. Tall, elongated, peaceful. They weren't alive. But they weren't dead either. Preserved in something between time and sleep. What is this place? Maya breathed. A vault, the AI replied. A memory bank, a seed of a civilization that came long before. Eli approached one of the capsules. The figure inside was beautiful. Alien, yes, but not frightening. Its eyes were closed, hands folded, and etched on its chest was a symbol they had seen before, on the alien ship. On the signal, and now, glowing softly on the AI's interface, they seeded this, Sundar whispered back on Earth, watching the images stream in. They built it, and waited. For what? Lena asked. Stunned. Sundar leaned forward. For us. The message of the ancients' chamber pulsed with silence, not empty silence, but a silence so full it almost sang. Ioi and Maya stood, motionless in the heart of the ancient vault, surrounded by what felt like echoes of a civilization too vast, too old, and too precise for the human mind to fully comprehend. The humanoid forms suspended in translucent capsules appeared to sleep peacefully, timeless guardians of a truth buried beneath Martian soil, beneath centuries, beneath memory itself. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air, if it could be, called that, shimmered with something unseen. It wasn't heat. It wasn't electricity. It was memory. The chamber was alive with memory. Each wall, each symbol etched in flowing curves and impossibly sharp edges, seemed to whisper things no ear could catch, but every cell in their bodies somehow understood. Then, the AI's voice returned, but it wasn't speaking from the ship anymore. It was speaking from the chamber. This is the archive, it said, with a tone that sounded different, deeper, fuller. It is older than your sun's third orbit. It was placed here not to wait for visitors, but to survive. Eli's heart thudded against his chest. Survive what? Collapse, the AI answered. Destruction. Extinction. A warning. Written into history by those who refuse to let everything be forgotten. Maya stepped closer to one of the capsules, her gloved fingers hovering just inches away from the shimmering field surrounding it. The figure inside looked almost serene. Tall, slender, its skin iridescent even through the translucent casing. And its, though in human radiated peace, not fear. They looked like they were made to dream, she whispered. They were not dreamers, said the AI, now speaking not as a tool, but like something awakened. They were curators, teachers, survivors of a cycle older than your languages, your continents, your myths. The chamber flickered, and then suddenly everything changed. Images flooded the room, not on screens, but in the air. Floating lights, living diagrams, three-dimensional memories woven in color and sound. Galaxies forming, civilizations rising, others falling. Strange, beautiful beings building towering cities on planets humans had only just begun to name. But it all kept repeating. Again and again, a surge of light showed war. Planets cracking, stars blinking out, beings vanishing, and then silence. The collapsed and then another kind of image, a hand reaching, placing a single stone. A vault. A message. A seed. Eli gasped. They knew it would happen again. They predicted every rise, said the AI, and every fall. And in each cycle, they left markers. Some in space, some in time, and one here. Maya turned to Eli. We weren't just the first to reach this place. We were chosen, or maybe filtered. The AI responded. The signal was not broadcast. It was triggered. Only when organic and synthetic minds acted in unison would the vault respond. Eli's breath caught in his throat. So that's why it sent us coordinates. It was waiting for a balance, a human and an AI. A mind with heart, the AI said. and a heart with mind. Those words echoed inside Sundar's thoughts. As he watched from mission control, everyone around him had fallen silent. The images streaming from Vishwa, one played like a dream no one could interpret fully, but all could feel. Lena leaned over. Sundar, this changes everything. If this is real, he cut her off gently. It is real. But why now? Why us? Sundar looked down at his hands. Because maybe we were finally ready to listen. On Mars, the AI continued. This chamber contains more than memory. It contains code. Instructions, not just for technology, but for thought, for society. For peace, Eli narrowed his eyes. You mean blueprints? Yes, the AI said. They called it the lattice, a framework for how a civilization can grow without consuming itself. A path forward that does not end in fire. Mia stepped into the center of the chamber. What happens if we take it? The chamber responded not with words, but with a pulse. A bright light emerged from the center of the room, forming a crystalline structure in midair. It hovered, silently, spinning slowly, emitting sounds that felt like music from inside a dream. The AI translated it. This is the first strand, encoded knowledge, not technology, not weapons, philosophy, ethics, empathy. Eli stepped forward. They're not giving us power, they're giving us tokens. You must choose, the AI said. You cannot take it back to Earth until you understand what it asks. And what does it ask? Maya breathed. The AI paused. It asks if humanity is ready to lead itself without falling. For a moment, Eli didn't speak. His hand hovered near the strand. All his life, he had been trained to explore, to conquer space, to trust in discipline, in tactics, in power. But this moment demanded something else, something harder. Humility. He looked to Maya, then at the capsule in front of them. The ancient being within had placed its faith in a future it would never see. Not a weapon, not a throne. A lesson. We're not perfect, Eli whispered. We're divided, reckless, afraid, but maybe that's why we need this. Not because we're ready, but because if we don't learn, we won't survive our own reflection. Maya nodded. Then slowly, gently. Eli reached forward and touched the strand. It didn't resist. Instead. It merged, melting into light that flowed into his suit, into the AI systems, into the ship itself. Symbols raced across the interface. Harmonies began to play. The capsule lights grew brighter. The chamber vibrated softly. And then the other capsules began to vanish. Not violently, not destructively. They dissolved, one by one, into stardust. The AI explained. Their purpose is complete. Once the lattice is accepted, the past must not dominate the future. They gave us the beginning. Now we must write the rest. Eli and Maya stood in silence, watching as the last capsule disappeared. Outside. The alien object, silent guardian of the vault, rose gently from the canyon. As if knowing its duty had been fulfilled, it slowly rotated one final time. Then accelerated into the stars. Gone. Double quotes return course plotted, said BA. But before we go, one more message awaits. A panel opened at the far end of the chamber. A pedestal rose. On it, a metallic plate with unfamiliar writing. And one sentence translated into English. I read, to those who listen, we leave not our greatness, but our regret. May you choose better? Maya wiped a tear from her cheek. Eli just stood there, still then, without another word. They walked back to the ship. As the engines warmed and the red sands of Mars faded below them. Something had changed. Not just in the mission, not just in the AI, but in humanity. The future wasn't about reaching further into space. It was about becoming worthy of what they might find there. Asterisk, the new dawn stars no longer looked the same. Not to Sundar, not to Eli, not to Maya, not to anyone who had seen what lay beneath Mars' reds. As Vishwa 1 began its return journey to Earth. The capsule carried something far heavier than any physical object. It carried a truth older than any book, deeper than any ocean. A truth buried not in mythology or conspiracy, but in hard reality. And now it was coming home on board. Eli Brooks stared out the window in silence, his breath slow and even. Somewhere deep within the ship's systems, the ancient lattice pulsed, a crystalline code embedded now into the AI's core framework. It had no user manual, no instruction set, and yet it spoke, not in words, but in harmonics, patterns. S-Y-M-N-E tears dot, as he sat in quiet contemplation. Maya approached and floated next to him, holding 2 rehydrated coffee packs. She handed one to him. "You haven't spoken in hours," she said. He took the coffee, nodded, but didn't sip. "I'm still trying to process it, all of it, what we saw, what we carry now." "You're not alone, Matt," she whispered. Her eyes misty. Eli looked at the interface, where the A now pulsed with a soft golden hue. It no longer felt like a program. It felt aware, not just of tasks or functions, but of something greater, like it had seen what they saw and had evolved. "It's changed, hasn't it?" Ali asked. Maya nodded. "It's not just running calculations anymore. It's asking questions, real ones." As if on cue, the AI's voice returned, no longer clinical, but calm, reflective. "May I ask one of those questions now?" "Go ahead," Eli said. "How do humans forgive themselves after choosing war or wisdom?" The question struck both astronauts like a thunderclap. It wasn't just about data. It wasn't a system fault. The AI had internalized the lattice. It had begun thinking about morality, not just simulating it. Eli exhaled slowly. "Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we try to do better. And that's all we can do." Maya added softly, "The fact that you're asking means we're already changing." The ship continued on. Back on Earth. The world had already begun to tremble, despite all attempts to contain the story. Whispers of Vishva One's altered path and mysterious discovery began to spread. Leaked photos, hacked transmissions, fragments of audio. A global storm ignited, and the internet caught fire with speculation. But when Sundar Pichai stepped up to the podium at a globally streamed press event, everything changed forever.